All right, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. I'm your host, JK, and we are kicking off episode number 177 of Help Me Understand. Per the usual, before getting into today's episode to talk about signs and changing your perception and how you process different signs on the road to your goal, your destination, wherever you're going, I want to take a moment, as always, to say thank you for choosing to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast. I sincerely never take it for granted that you chose to, out of all the different things that you could be doing right now, take at least a few moments to press play on the podcast. With that, there's also a little bit of a funny note with now having the podcast episodes available up on YouTube. I'm starting to dabble a bit in some of the background statistics or the insights, I think they're called on YouTube. I know on Instagram they're called insights. On YouTube, I'm digging into that very surface level so far, just to see kind of how the platform plays itself out in the background. And one of the things that you're able to do is get information, feedback, statistics on how long the average listener or the average viewer, I guess I should say, sticks around on your YouTube video. And for those of you who are not aware, I do have a YouTube channel. It's just Coach JK McLeod. The link is in the show notes if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, or some other audio podcasting platform. On that particular YouTube channel, I primarily have used it in the past for uploading exercise demos that I may use in some of my training programs. And recently, I've also expanded to including episodes of the Help Me Understand podcast. So as of right now, again, very beginning stages, but it's just kind of interesting that you can see on, for example, a 30-minute podcast episode that, on average, people are tapping out after a minute and a half. Probably not, not the best indication of what you've got going on. So I don't know. Perhaps that means I need to get to the point a lot earlier if I was trying to optimize for YouTube, which at this point, I'm not really doing that. My primary energy, my mental energy, is put into optimizing for audio versus specifically the YouTube platform. So, all right, with that being said, we're I think about 2.5 minutes in. So somebody's probably already tapped out, but let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. And I want to very briefly talk to you about a mindset shift, a perception shift, a filter shift. Hopefully that covers all the different types of shifts. And I'm trying to say that very carefully without getting the explicit label on this episode, that you could put this underneath, or all the different umbrellas. So I want to talk to you about signs. And this comes to mind recently. I like to give you some context. This comes to mind recently in working with some folks in the Reset program and getting an understanding of where they are with their foundational habits, how they eat, sleep, and exercise within the first about 2 to 3 weeks that we're currently in of this 9-week program. And what it's reminded me of so far, and also it's come up in both past and present experiences in a lot of the one-on-one work that I do with clients, and just in some of the everyday types of interactions that I will have with people, whether they're inside of fitness or not. This very common difference that I see between those who are successful in achieving their goal and then maintaining whatever level that they want to be at after hitting a certain goal, and those that, quite frankly, are not. And one of the things that stands out is how they translate particular events, and specifically how they translate challenges, and whether or not and how they process that as a sign to keep going or a sign to stop and turn around and just do something completely different. An analogy that comes to mind is a few days ago, I got up and I was going to drive to the gym. And the gym that I was going to is my primary gym that I train at the majority of the time. Shout out Power and Fitness. It is, I'd say at best, about an 8-ish minute drive from my house. Now, in the area that we live in central Illinois, we live in a fairly wide open area, meaning that there are not tall buildings or anything like that that are really blocking a whole lot of stuff. So it's very open, wide open air. There's farmland around. I do not live in like a super rural city. However, we do have a decent amount of farmland and things like that. We also live not too far from a small regional airport. So there ideally can't be a whole lot of super tall buildings. I think about it in contrast to when I worked in Chicago and near the downtown area where it was just like skyscraper city, right? So oftentimes when I'm leaving my house to go to the gym, if there's any sort of fog that's going out, it is not just slightly blocking the view, or the words escaping me, but it's not a slight inconvenience. Like sometimes the fog can be so thick that you can maybe go about 15 to 20 miles an hour on a road that you easily are good, like 45, 50, if you like to drive speed limit, which I typically do, and no problem. However, especially early in the mornings, and I think on this particular morning, maybe it was around 5, I'm going to say, um, I was driving particularly slow because the fog was so thick and you could see, a few feet in front of you at best. And I thought about that as I was driving through that fog, because there was no hesitation, no thought of, well, it's too foggy. I can't really see what's going on. I didn't really plan for this. So let me just turn around and go back home. That never entered my mind. I had a specific destination that I was moving towards, which was going to the gym. I had other options. I could have trained at home for sure. I could have waited until later. If I remember correctly, it was a day where I had some flexibility. I could squeeze the session in at some other point. However, none of those options really entered my mind because I didn't take it as a sign that I shouldn't go to the gym. I simply took it as a data point of, okay, it's foggy, so it will most likely take a little bit longer to get to the gym. And okay, that is the scenario. Like that's it. It's not a sign that I shouldn't go to the gym. I think about another scenario where I've left for the gym before and forgotten my headphones or forgotten some particular thing, like maybe a certain pair of shoes that I was going to switch into because it was snowy outside. So then I forgot, like wore my boots. I remember that happened one time. Anybody else ever deal with that? Wore my snow boots to hop in the car, then get halfway to the gym and realize I don't have my boots. So I could have taken that as a sign. Well, this must be, God telling me that it's not my day to work out, or I figure out a workaround. I'm either going to go back home and get my shoes, and then we've got to make some adjustments to the workout, or I'm going to be super careful and I got socks on, so I'll just, adjust where needed, make some different adjustments. Actually, pro tip, what I started doing, and I'm not sure that I know that not every gym is going to allow you to do this. At my particular gym, we do have the ability to do this, but that's one of the reasons that I now leave a pair of shoes at the gym that I don't wear very often. They're there though, because of that particular incident a while back. And it's just easy. If I forget, I got a pair of shoes at the gym. So my point is, as I went through both of those scenarios, it was very natural for me, and I've developed this filter that when particular challenges arise, inconveniences, different barriers, let's call them different obstacles, my first thought is rarely ever, okay, well, this is a sign that I shouldn't be doing this particular thing, or this is a sign that this just wasn't meant to be today, versus having some conversations and working through some development with folks who are trying to develop some better consistency with specifically their exercise. Although there are other areas that this certainly applies to. I think that for the purpose of trying to keep this somewhat focused, I'll focus on exercise specifically. Sometimes I will work with people who they have certain things happen and they take that as a sign that they're not supposed to be working out that day, or they take it as a sign of, well, see, this it just wasn't meant to be. So take those same scenarios. I got to the gym and I forgot my shoes. So that was just a sign I wasn't supposed to work out, and so they don't work out. And by the way, I have had some folks who've been in that situation and made that decision. And I'm not saying that that is a blanket, hey, if you ever forget your shoes, that means you should or shouldn't work out. Each situation is individual, as always. I'm just using an example because it's something that I've been through also. I think even you can have just the basics of, I got up, I was supposed to work out at 6 a.m. and my alarm didn't go off. So I woke up late. Then as I was driving to the gym, I spilled my coffee all over my shirt. And it's so easy as humans to just regurgitate this quick statement or word vomit, this quick statement of, yep, I guess that's just a sign that that's how today's going to go. And I'm recording and releasing this on a Monday morning. I cannot tell you the number of times that I hear this particular statement specifically on a Monday. So today, if I was a betting person, which I'm not, however, if I was a betting person, I would bet that today, when I go into my retail job within the next hour or so here, that's why this is going to be a short episode, there is likely going to be one or more instances where something goes quote unquote wrong. It doesn't go according to plan, either for myself, a coworker, and or a customer that we're going to be working with. And without fail, in at least one of those instances, someone will say, well, man, that is just, yep, figures. It's Monday. This is just what happens on a Monday. Guess this just isn't going to be my day. And that is where I want to challenge you in how you're filtering and how you're translating those particular signs. So yes, I do get it that there are particular things that are going to happen that are going to be not according to plan. In fact, most things probably won't be according to plan. They're not going to be perfect. And even if you've accepted that most things won't be perfect, just even the slight, and you believe that, hey, everything, like the slightest inconvenience is not a reason to just, abandon ship and just bail. And I'm not doing that and we'll wait until another day. Even with that, though, when you start off from a mindset of not being 100% committed to like, hey, I really intend to do this particular thing, it becomes easier and easier to let these challenges, these roadblocks, these inconveniences, the one-off thing that you didn't expect, it becomes easier and easier to let those things either veer you completely off course involuntarily, or actually mostly be voluntarily, but have you veer completely off course or even turn around, versus making a slight adjustment over to another lane. Take the fog example for me, slowing things down a bit and realizing, okay, this is going to be a process. It's going to take longer than initially anticipated. And yet still, I'm going to continue to press forward. So that forward press is really important. So that is really, again, one of, I hesitate to say the main, I'm just going to say one of the most common things or most common traits that I see in those who are successful in reaching the goal that they're looking to get to, whether it be in fitness, whether it be in career, whether it be financially, whether it be personally in relationships, working through those obstacles. They expect there's going to be friction. Friction's becoming kind of a buzzword in the industry, and also it's a great term. So they expect friction, they expect challenge, they expect obstacles. It's like going on a road trip and expecting that there are going to be some slowdowns. There's going to potentially be, unfortunately, some accidents. You just pray that the other person who's involved is going to be okay. Like, you expect that certain things are going to happen, and you continue to press forward. That is a common trait that I see in those who are successful, a common trait that I see in those that tend to not be successful. And I'm not talking like success being defined as something outward. I'm talking about you set a goal and you achieve that specific goal that you have set for yourself. A very common trait that I see is more often than not translating many obstacles and friction as a sign to stop and turn around or completely veer off course instead of making an adjustment. So you know the difference between when you're on the highway, and we'll finish with, because I keep going back to the same analogy, we'll finish with this. You know the difference between taking a detour, pulling off into a different exit than you planned in order to take a different route, versus completely veering off course with no specific intention of still moving towards your destination. Like maybe it was straight ahead of you and now that road is closed. Well, you know what you can do? You can take a right, then you can take a left and go straight up, or you can take a right and you can take another right and you turn around and go in the other direction. And my challenge for you and my encouragement for you to kick off this week, or whenever you may listen to this, whether it's a Monday or not, is to choose the path that continues to move you forward, no matter how many different right and then left turns you need to make in order to do that. So work on that, creating that change of how you filter, how you read signs. So everything doesn't have to be like, hey, if you don't pass this driver's test with understanding this sign means exactly this, then you fail. Doesn't necessarily have to work that way. You can also translate particular things that happen as signs to keep going, not signs to stop. Okay. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call this an episode. So thank you for choosing to press play on Help Me Understand. This has been episode number 177. As always, if you would like to help me with spreading the word about the podcast, I would certainly appreciate a share. Leave a rating and or review, screenshot, tag me on Instagram, Coach JK McLeod. Whatever the case may be, I would always appreciate it. So take care. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.